CRA and City Council meeting for the City of Dunnellon, September 27th on 2023. Could we all stand for opening pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a moment of silence when somebody would like to lead us in prayer. Amen. Okay. Andy, would you call roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Dunn,
Here.
Vice Mayor Amity,
Here.
Councilperson Mendoza, Councilman Lehman.
Here.
Jan Smith, Finance Officer.
Here.
Have Ward Public Works Manager,
Here.
Julie Danowski, Records Clerk. Here. Steve Scaglione,
Here.
Lieutenant Bray. Not here. City Attorney Andrew Hand.
I'm here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the city's website, called bulletin board on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments on the council on the agenda?
I have one, Wally.
Okay.
Ask number 9 for discussion is the dog rescue.
Uh-huh.
So that the folks in the audience, the dog rescue don't have to wait till the end of the meeting. Is it
Mhm.
possible to move that up? I don't know if it's out of protocol or not.
It's fine with me. No, I saw them here, so we can do that. All right, so we're gonna move number 9 up. I guess to all the rest of this is public hearing, so we'll need to move it up to number 1. Right? Andrew, we don't need to vote on that, do we? We all agree.
As part of setting the agenda, no, you don't. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Okay. So why don't we just go right through that? I put on the agenda these 2 items, the dog rescue and Form 6 disclosure for elected officials. And what I wanted to do was really just start the discussion. I think I had promised some of the residents that we would take it up in our October workshop. Yep.
Just do recommend that you start with the public comments on non-agenda items first.
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items? Anybody on Zoom, Mandy?
Have anyone sign up except for specific items?
Okay.
I do not have anyone with a hand raised on Zoom.
Okay. All right. Going back to this. I got with Kelly, and I think Kelly got with Chad, and then I've talked to Andrew a little bit about this. What I have been able to determine is the situation of a tax exempt dog rescue in the city of Dunnellon. There is really no ordinance for or against that. That said, that doesn't mean we can't do something or at least look into it. I know Andrew and I talked a little bit about this last Friday, I think.
Yes, sir.
You made a couple of comments to me that and let me just back up. What happened apparently in the city of Dunnellon was this, we adopted an ordinance that mirrored Marion County. And Marion County does not have a dog rescue ordinance related to tax exempts. And apparently it appears they are not subject to much oversight. I looked at it to see if there was something we could do going forward and came up with the idea that in the future, we might want to address this as maybe having it so if you want to do a dog rescue, whether tax exempt or otherwise, we would only allow that in zones A1 of the city of Dunnellon, which are agriculture, and take them out of R1, 2, and 3. The problem I saw with that, though, as far as what exists today, and this is the only one I'm aware of, it looks like whatever we have would almost be grandfathered into this provision. Now, Andrew, you and I discussed a couple of other alternatives, and you may want to lay that out.
Sure, and I can give you a quick full brief of everything that has transpired and kind of where the code lies now and what options city council has. There's really two options, and I think from what I know about the situation, and there's one I think that is a little bit better of an option, but ultimately that's for you to decide if you choose to take action. But just a few clarifications and sort of the state of the code right now. Exactly what the mayor said, stated it for the situation just right back in 2021. Don't remember the exact date, but I believe it was towards the end of the year. City had approached Marion County and asked for some help with animal control enforcement. And they said, well, we can handle that, but you have to adopt the county's ordinance. So at that point in time, cleared out the city's ordinance and fully adopted by reference the county's ordinance. So it's exactly the same as the county's ordinance. What is noteworthy that was in the city's code that is not there currently is previously there was a 4 animal restriction per household, but by the city's own code at that time, it did not apply to animal rescues. So that was the status before. So even under the previous city status, the same issue exists. With the new Marion County Code, there's not an animal number restriction per se. Now, just as previous with the city's ordinance, there is a distinction between Marion County's ordinance does cover animal rescues to some extent and references them with the code. There's not a lot of regulations on them, but it makes it very clear that from Marion County's perspective in these regulations, kennels and rescues are different. And the county has 2 different classifications of kennels. When you look at and so that is the city's code now. Now, zoning also comes into play. It comes into play into the county. It comes into play into the city. When you look at the city's zoning code, there is nothing that specifically addresses animal rescue. On the other hand, there is something that addresses kennels, and kennel is defined as any place or premises where 3 or more dogs over 6 weeks of age are kept for pay or for sale. Kennels are permitted in B3 and B4, nowhere else in the city. Very clear that animal rescue organizations are not kennels due to the definition of kennels and for pay, as well as keeping dogs there for essentially boarding is what is contemplated with kennels. So that's not regulated. Animal rescues are not contemplated within the city zoning code. And the city zoning code simply does state that if it's not a listed use, it's not permitted, but that creates a First Amendment issue for organizations such as animal rescues if they're not permitted anywhere in the city. So it can't be construed to prohibit them. Now, that is the state of the city's code currently. What the city has for options, this can either be approached through zoning, or perhaps what I think may be a better route is if council is amenable, is basically reinstating that for animal requirement, whether it's 4 dogs or 4 animals. It's very common throughout Florida. Many counties, many cities, I would go as far as saying more than a majority have a 4 animal restriction. Certainly it's something I see recurring if I were to search Municode and do a statewide search, as I've done. So that's something that can be implemented. And if animal rescues are not addressed within the zoning code, now previously, this could look different than the city's previous 4 animal restriction. It could still apply to animal rescues. And so in other words, anybody can have an animal rescue in any type of zoning per se, But that restriction would still apply for animals, and you can exempt agricultural properties where there wouldn't be any restrictions.
Mhm.
So that would set the floor now. In regard to existing rescues, the legislation could simply state, well, 4 is what's allowed. If you have more than that, as these animals are adopted, or sadly, as they pass on, oftentimes, rescued animals have shorter lifespans for a number of reasons, then you're getting down to the 4. It's like a non-conforming use, but this isn't a zoning regulation.
Right.
So, a current rescue just wouldn't be taking in more than 4 animals. And the way we see that written typically, in my discussions with Chad, he pointed out is it's 4 animals over the age of, I think, 6 months. We see something in that range to allow for the fact that animals do reproduce and have puppies and
Right,
kittens.
right.
So that can be, something that is, considered and implemented in the ordinance. Another option would be, as you mentioned, Mayor, to go into a zoning type of situation. Of course, that's a little bit more complex, needs to go through the planning commission, and that creates a situation where you're banning a particular use in zoning. And really, there's no difference that the way I see it between somebody who has 4 pets per se and someone who may have 4 animals residing on the property that they're just keeping in the interim until they can be adopted or they're rehabilitating them. So that's why I think the other route, as opposed to the zoning, might be a better option, but ultimately that's for you to decide, or if you don't like any of the options.
Right.
But that is where we're at right now as far as the regulations. And even if the city were to do nothing, the city has options and can take action under Marion County zoning code, or pardon me, I didn't mean to say zoning, but under their animal regulations, which the city again has adopted. There are a number of regulations, dealing with dangerous animals. I don't know that that's an issue, but if it were to become one, that's included in there. And nuisance behavior, barking, other nuisance behavior, destruction of property, et cetera, is all covered in there, and something the city can currently enforce against.
Okay.
In addition, homeowners in the area that may have, issues with a neighbor or so forth, they have all the private rights of action that doesn't involve the city, but that's something they can pursue individually.
Okay. Okay. Well, I just wanted this added because I knew we were going to discuss it next month, so everyone on the council could think about it. And that was really all I wanted Andrew to do, is kind of give us a big picture of maybe what our options would be. And think about it, and then we get to October, it will be on the agenda, and we can try to address it then. Okay. Any comments?
I just have a question on the animal rescues. When you were describing kennels and you said for pay. Is that pertaining to pay to boarding or pay when the animal is released to somebody else?
For purchase, when they're sold for purchase.
Because with animal rescues, we've gotten a few dogs and we've usually had to pay a $300 to $400 fee.
Yes, as a donation, and the way that it's structured, it's
Okay.
not because of how the 501c3 operates, it's not structured as a sale. It just doesn't work that way. It's not a business that is completing
Okay, I
a
just wanted to
sale
find
for
out if
pay.
that was a viable way.
There is a fee, but it's a little bit different.
Okay.
Okay, after researching this more over the weekend, went to the city ordinance, discovered that the city ordinance isn't live anymore, that we basically we use the county ordinance. The city ordinance is very plain that it's what it says in there is nonprofit rescues / kennels can have no more than 4 dogs over the age, I believe it's 4 months, 6 months, something like that. However, that does not override the zoning in my mind, where the zoning is very clear with kennels, even though it doesn't mention rescues, it's very clear in my mind that the intent is 4 or more dogs that are either a licensed rescue or kennel have to be in B zoned areas when we look at the zoning chart. Even though it doesn't specifically say in the zoning, it doesn't mention kennel, but in the old city ordinance, it does mention kennel, but mentions properly licensed rescue / kennel. So to me, they're putting them basically in the same boat as far as the intent of having more than 4 dogs in an R zoned area. Reached out to the city to ask what the city has allowed for permits, et cetera. So far, we're still looking back. Kelly will be back Monday to look into it further. But right now, the only thing that we're showing from the city is that the rescue applied for a fencing permit. And that's it. The thread has to be pulled further to see what the county approved and what was behind their thinking when and if they permitted everything for this rescue. But when I look in the county ordinance and the county zoning, they also require kennels to, and again, it's just like the term rescue, for some reason, it just isn't in there. But when you look at ordinances, they always say rescue / kennel. So in my mind, they're calling them the same thing when it comes down to having 4 or more dogs and where you can have those at. And both require them to be in a B zoned area. So what I believe at this time is, let's just say the county did permit everything. I think somebody made a mistake by permitting it and allowing it to be in a residential zone. Yes, sir.
I can clarify a few of those things. So 4 or more dogs or 4 cats,
Right.
that was in the old city code. Now it's still up on Municode, but it is not a regulation
Correct.
in place.
Correct.
As far as the county goes, the county they have their own zoning code. They have nothing to do with the city. So it's just like licensing. It's like a business tax receipt that somebody pays here. It's going to get issued. The county's not going to check the city zoning because that's not within their powers. It's not within their, purview. We use that word a lot here to review. So they'll issue it. And if the city has an issue with zoning, then it's on the city to take that up, just as the city issues a business tax receipt. That's not, an approval for a business to proceed, as long as it's paid, they issue it.
Mhm.
So the county is not, and I'm not saying that's a tax, I'm just saying that's not part of the county's criteria to look at the city's zoning. Now, the definition that I read earlier of kennels, that was from, got a lot of papers here.
Right.
That was actually from the city's
Correct.
zoning code, which differentiates it, again, has no mention of 4 or more dogs or cats
In the zoning.
in the zoning. So,
Correct.
the kennel per the city's definition in the zoning code
Right.
is any place where 3 or more dogs over 6 weeks of age are
Correct.
kept for pay or for sale. So for pay being, again, that's for boarding, that type of a thing, where you're putting a dog.
Right. No,
You
I
know,
understood that.
way.
And I knew that would be a bone of contention.
Mhm.
I didn't mean to say it that way, but bone of contention.
Right. So, and the sale is not covered, as I explained before, because of the relationship. It's not a business that is selling an animal as property. So, which it sounds weird to say since they're living beings, but technically under the law, animals are chattel, they're property. Just sounds weird when I say it as it rolls off the tongue, but of course that's the state of the law. So, really, the city can get exactly to what you're describing, Councilman Inskeep, but that's not the way the code reads right now. But it can be amended to accomplish just that.
But with that, if we amended it, wouldn't they still be grandfathered in?
That's what I was explaining earlier. Let's say that there are 10 dogs there right now.
Right.
So the rule becomes 4. Basically, if you have, it's like a non-conforming use. As the use goes away, I won't use
I
legal
understand.
terminology. I'll
Yeah,
just,
I understand what you're saying.
so as those pets, as I said, either become
Okay.
unfortunately deceased, or they're adopted,
I
or
understand.
getting
Yeah.
to that 4 number,
Right.
and they can't
Rather than
replenish
outright just
those.
taking them away.
So by reinstating the no more than 4, which went away when we went to the county.
Right.
By reinstating the no more than 4, would the her right to have the nonprofit, where would that stand?
Those, and that's what I was saying with the two options. If it's just simply a limitation, that can be applied to rescues throughout the city. And so whether it's a nonprofit or it's an individual,
I
it's
see.
for.
I
And
see.
you could, this would not be a zoning regulation, but you can exempt agricultural properties. Alternatively,
Got it.
you can go the zoning route to accomplish something similar, but that becomes a bit more onerous in getting to the result that you want to get to and restrictive. And creates a situation, I think, that it may not benefit the animals in that, a rescue simply couldn't operate in a residential area. Really, there's probably not much difference between a homeowner who has 4 pets versus a homeowner who is participating or operates a rescue and has 4 rescue animals.
But that was
That
the
is
piece I
cycling.
missed, that if we put it back to 4, we can apply it to 4 for any residence or
Exactly,
nonprofit.
which would be a difference, from the way that it was before,
Mhm.
in that rescues were exempted from that 4 animal requirement,
Got it.
specifically in the city's previous code.
Thank you.
May I?
I just want to ask Tim, you were going to reach out to the owner after we got the email.
Yes.
What did you find out from that?
I talked to her for about an hour and a half. She basically just went through her residence, how she had it set up. We talked about the different inspections that she has had, et cetera, et cetera. And it was mostly, that she has told me, she has followed all the technical requirements to operate. Code enforcement's been out there, the county has been out there. And there's only the one issue with the fencing. She took care of that. And that was pretty much the gist of the conversation. It was a very nice conversation, not contentious at all. Just information gathering type thing.
Okay.
And she was more than willing to offer up everything and anything.
Okay.
Where I'm confused is we actually have, in my mind, we have 3 documents. We have the city zoning that requires kennels be in B zoned areas. We have the city animal control ordinance, which says can't have more than 4 dogs unless you are a properly licensed rescue or kennel. And then which is no longer, that whole ordinance is not applicable because it's been a resolution that we now fall underneath the county ordinance. So the city ordinance, so now we have the county ordinance that basically we have to follow, and I have to catch up to see exactly, again, I've read it, but I don't remember what the county ordinance states. So where I'm confused is 2 things. Is it the county ordinance that we have to try to get changed? Or is it our zoning document that we have to get changed? My second question is, regardless of either one, what I was hearing you say is once they are changed, and if this rescue, I'll use your number, has 10 dogs right now, as the dogs get adopted, and the rescue is backed up to 4, they can no longer take in any more dogs. So they're not grandfathered in per se. At that point, they cannot take in any more than 4 dogs.
Right. So answer the first question, whether it's the city zoning code or the county code that needs to be amended, neither. What would be a change, because this is something that would be a regulation, just like the chicken ordinance, above and beyond the county's regulations, county won't enforce it. It's my understanding the county won't enforce the city regulations beyond what the county what the county has promulgated through their rules and regulations. So this would be a city-specific ordinance enforceable through code enforcement, as far as restrictions on 4 and so forth. And then as far, just the way you described it over a period of time, yes, that's what would happen. It's grandfathered in a sense that it's like I said, it's like a conforming use. It's sort of like the fence ordinance, right? If you outlaw chain link fence within a city, and then you just can't put new chain link in, right? So same thing with dogs and cats. If there's a 4 number restriction, then they're just not, you don't cycle new dogs and cats in as others are adopted or as they become deceased.
I think that's really positive also because it gives the nonprofit owner opportunities and time to make other arrangements if that's in fact necessary.
You good? Okay. No, I just put this on the agenda because I thought we were going to discuss it next month and I wanted y'all to hear some of this and I didn't know what you had figured
Sure,
out,
sure.
but hopefully this can give us kind of a head start on where we want to go
Very much.
next.
Thank you.
Next month. Okay. Now let's go back to the agenda. Number one is now number two, which is public hearing statement.
Excuse me, Wally, are you gonna put Form 6 somewhere else?
Yeah, we'll just get to it. when we
Very
get to
good,
it.
thank you.
That's just really us. I don't
Very
want to
good.
hold people up for that.
Can we do public comments on this one or? I don't know
Yeah.
if there has to be. They're
Not
asking.
really. I mean, I guess if y'all have any public comments, yes, ma'am. Oh, okay.
Brenda Giarva, 11661 Camp Drive. As I was listening to the discussion about having no more than 4 animals, have you thought about people who have a single adult animal that breeds? So if you've got, they might have 7 or 8 puppies. And I know right now of 6 different people that they breed their animal and they sell them for, $1,000, $2,000, those puppies, and that's how they supplement their income.
Right.
So that needs to be
It
thought
it
about.
presently is right now, Brenda. What the language in both the county and the city ordinances, I think they have 2 different ages.
Okay,
But it's, you can't have any more than 4 and that are over the age of like, I'm gonna pick a number, 4 months, 6 months. there we
okay,
go.
so it would give,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
person could still breed
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
That's
Okay,
right.
thank you. That was what popped in my mind.
Very much, thank
Okay.
you.
Does anybody else have any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
Goodlow, 19154 St. Lawrence Drive. I just want to get clarification on what you said as far as if they adopt the rule to not allow over the 4. So for instance, like she has 20 right now. So as she adopts those dogs out, she can't get another 3 more. If she gets rid of 3, she can't keep at that 20 mark. Okay, I just want to
That's
clarification.
my understanding.
Okay, all right. So that's just one of the options you could do. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions on this animal ordinance? Okay. All right. Now we can go back to one.
Yes, thank you.
Y'all keep me straight, but I'll get next to.
Dude, you're in trouble. If
All
we're
right.
keeping this-
Mandy, would you like to read the public hearing statement?
Yes. All persons wishing to address the city council will be asked to limit their comments to the specific subject being addressed. Public opinions and input are valued by the council. However, it is requested that comments are directed at specific issues rather than personal comments directed toward the council members or staff in order to foster mutual respect between council members and the public. Members of the public in attendance at public forums should listen courteously and attentively to all public discussions before the body and focus on the business at hand. They shall refrain from interrupting other speakers, making personal comments not germane to the business of the body, or otherwise interfering with the orderly conduct of meetings. Members of the public addressing city council and boards or commissions on a specific project or proposal are requested to disclose any personal interest or relationship and any business, professional, or financial interest with any individual, group, project, or proposal regarding the subject matter under review. Members of the public should always err on the side of more public disclosure, not less, in order to provide integrity to the public process.
Okay. Okay, we'll have the first public hearing will be on ordinance ORD 2022-05 vacation rentals, which was published on the city website on September the 14th, 2023, and in the Riverland News on September 15th, 2023. We will have the final reading of the ordinance ORD 2022-05 vacation rentals. We will now accept public comments. Anybody signed up?
No.
No one signed up? Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Hi there. Katie Geis, 12205 Palmetto Way. My comments tonight are specific to inspections. I want to be clear that we've talked about this issue many times, but it gets tangled up with the concept of fire prevention controls. So I want to be clear that I'm not opposed to proper fire prevention controls like extinguishers, smoke detectors. That's not my issue. My concern is all related to inspections. The final version of this ordinance is not consistent with the goals that you all have spoken about yourselves. You all have expressed concerns about the budget and the tight financial conditions and taking on additional unknown costs. You've said that you want to be consistent with the law and only enforce what is in the law today. You've said that you want to treat vacation rentals consistent with how we treat other businesses. So there's many things related to the inspections that are inconsistent with those goals that I just mentioned. Line 324 says that we need to have inspections and we need to have them done annually after each renewal. The current version also says that the city or a city contractor will be doing the fire inspections. Line 329 says that the vacation rental owner needs to provide reasonable access to the city inspector or designated contractor. And there's a lot more detail on what happens if we miss those appointments. So no matter how this goes, it's going to be a costly process to take on and implement this type of procedure, especially when we don't have a fire department. And this is unbudgeted. This current version in the way that this is described with the inspections is overreach because it is more than what the law requires today. The law might require that we are compliant with the fire prevention code. The law does not require that vacation rentals be inspected, period. So this is also inconsistent with how we're treating other businesses. So why should we be held to a higher standard and a different standard than the Dinner Bell Motel or any other hotel or any other commercial business? And I've also heard, don't worry, we're going to figure this out in implementation. But I really struggle with how anything is going to be implemented that's different than what is specifically laid out in the ordinance. It's very clear what you're asking. I feel like we're rushing to get this done before October 1st. But in a result of sticking with the ordinance as you have it drafted, you're opening yourselves up for the exposure of litigation. And I feel like this is really targeting vacation rentals with an aim of shutting them down. I have a concern about that, and I don't want to, trust me, nobody wants litigation because nobody benefits in litigation except for the attorneys. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Okay.
If you'll give us just a second, I noticed that you didn't close the meeting and open the public hearing, and your public hearing
Oh,
guide
okay.
was not in front of you, but before you continue, you really should gavel down, close the meeting and open the public hearing.
Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't on my script.
Yeah, that, 'cause you got the one, you got. the one
It starts
for-
with item number 4. That's
Right.
the reason I didn't.
You're
do it.
missing that, you're missing the other one, so just.
Okay.
just-
Or if you just hold on 1 minute then. Let's see. Okay. It is now 6:05 PM. I want to close the regular meeting and open up the public hearing for the staff for the first presentation. Well, we won't have a first presentation on the vacation rental ordinance. And I guess if anybody needs to speak, don't they need to be sworn in?
This is not a quasi judicial hearing. this is
Okay, so it's not
legislative.
quasi, so we don't
So-
need to do that. Okay, I'm sorry. And if they want to speak, you're welcome to speak. Go ahead. Please give your name and
All right, thank you. My name is David Romanek. I'm a lawyer and I work in Ocala. My address is 2355 Southeast Fifth Street. And I'm here today on behalf of Amber Serena, who owns property at 11426 Hendricks Drive, which she uses as a vacation rental. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, there are certain legal principles that are at play here today. And they start with Article 2, Section Article 1, Section 2 of the Florida Constitution that says all natural persons have certain inalienable rights, including the right to acquire, possess, and protect property. In addition, when a zoning law is enacted, or any law is enacted that affects the unrestricted use of someone's property based upon this constitutional rights, those ordinances are strictly construed so that they will be interpreted in favor of the property owner and in favor of the unrestricted rights for the use of the property. When zoning is enacted, it's the exercise of the city's police power, and there's certain principles that are applicable there, such as the exercise of the police power by a municipality must be in the interest of achieving a public purpose such as health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the public. And that if it's truly a public purpose, more than just a limited group or a particular person or class must be benefited by the exercise of the police power. Another principle is that the specific exercise of police power chosen must be impartial and non-discriminatory, so that people engaged in similar business activities must be treated the same without favoring any particular person over the other. I think you all know that my client, Ms. Serena, acquired her property in 2011. She renovated it in 2012 with full permitting from the city of Dunnellon, and that she's operated as a vacation rental property since 2013. Her property only has one closet. It appears as though the inclusion in the ordinance of a closet requirement, which is not in the 2020 version of the Florida Building Code, as far as I can see, and I don't think it's going to be in the future versions, does not require a closet within the definition of a bedroom. In fact, bedroom is no longer even defined within the building code. So the inclusion of that closet requirement, we feel, is directed directly at Ms. Serena, and she is not being treated, therefore, similarly to other businesses, such as hotels that don't require that there be closets in any of their rooms. She also has certain vested rights under the Burt-Harris Act because of the authority granted to her when she did the renovation. If in fact litigation is to be avoided, the closet requirement needs to be changed, because that will end up in court. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Kalila Wendler. I reside at 20008 East Pennsylvania Ave, and I have a vacation rental legal with the state and county at 20030 East Pennsylvania Ave. I want to agree with Ms. Geist, who spoke earlier. I do believe that the annual fire inspections are a bit of an overreach. I do feel like our council is pushing to get this approved a bit quickly, and I do agree with Ms. Geist that it is to get them without the city limits. We know that our city is in debt. Vacation rentals bring income to our city. The businesses around my vacation rental profit greatly from the transient renters who come through. Having to have an annual inspection is a bit of an overreach. What other businesses are required to have that within the city in order to function? What else is going to be asked and required of us in order to continue to bring profit to our small town? You're just limiting it to the city ordinance. What happens with all the other vacation rentals just outside of our city? Those should also be falling under the same ordinance if that can be, but it's not, because it's within the county's regulation. The county does not require what the city is asking us. So just as what you're asking in the whereas section of this ordinance, you're reaching outside. I hope that you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't have anyone on Zoom.
Yes, ma'am.
Roseanne Paula DePaula. I am a citizen of the city of Dunnellon. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that I find this whole ordinance to be very personal. It seemed to me like it started when the mayor announced that he had a problem down his street and went on to say that he politely called the person called in and said, well, that's not very polite when you write a text saying, do I need to come down there? Also, when we have a spouse of one of the council members that comes in here and reads a text, 3 texts from the same person, it just seems very personal. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with everything that needs to be done because we all want to rent from a safe place. But the big word tonight here is overreach. You guys wasted a lot of money on what already the state is requiring. And we don't understand why you're doing this. What kind of a council do we have? I'm beyond words. I really think that this is personal. I think that there's some personal agendas up there. And I really hope that this doesn't continue as long as you guys have your seats. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else like to speak? Okay. It is now 6:12 p.m. I close the public hearing for discussion on ordinance ORD 2022-05 and reopen the September 27th city council meeting. Would anybody on the council like to say something?
I just have a quick one.
Okay.
I want to remind everybody that this ordinance had been in play for an entire year before we sat on this council. We simply picked up with this ordinance where it was dropped in our laps. We trimmed it way back from what the original requirements were. When it comes down to we have not, we're getting ready to put this, this vote may or may not put this on the books today, and my inclination is it will, to address the fire inspections. We've not implemented anything yet. We're getting ready to address the entire city when it comes to fire inspections. And we're going to deal with the entire city as a whole, because we have lost track. When we lost our fire department, there was no good management plan to transfer everything to the different entities once the fire department went to the county. So we have to play catch up with business that didn't get taken care of in the past, and get everybody in the city on board with our existing ordinance and the requirements. So the STRs will not be singled out by being the only ones that have to do or not do fire inspections. Based whatever comes out of that ordinance, everybody will be in the same boat. And that's the direction that we're heading. That's pretty much all I got to say.
Okay. Julianne?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Tim. This definitely started with the last council. It's not something that we introduced. As far as, sometimes you hear this argument like short-term rentals are bringing great profits to our city. And the truth is really that the city does not financially benefit from short-term rentals. We do share our police, we share our parks, we share our roads. You can say that people who visit shop at local restaurants and shops. But we know that taxes are calculated on a county level and not a city level. So those taxes are going into a big pot and they're being redistributed countywide, not citywide. So I take issue when people say that short-term rentals are bringing financial benefit to Dunnellon. I think the taxpayers are working to fix our roads and rebuild our police and keep our parks in order. And in a lot of ways, we do that for the thousands and thousands of people who are coming to visit our city. It's a lot for 1,900 or 2,000 people to carry that load. As far as, people maybe got permits and fixed up their houses many years ago and operate them as short-term rentals. I think in the very beginning, it became very clear to us that people operating short-term rentals in the city were not registered with the state. They were not paying their taxes. And we saw the number of people applying for their paperwork from the state double as we've started this. So I do think that we've seen this move in the positive direction of short-term renters, short-term rental owners taking responsibility by registering with the state, which was really required all along. And we're really glad that they're stepping up to pay their taxes. Personal, I don't really find it personal. I think this is an ordinance that we're seeing all across the state of Florida in big places and little places. So I don't think that this is real unique to Dunnellon. I think that we're way behind the curve on getting on board with these things. People who visit our city want to visit in a safe way, and this is, I think, a great way to promote that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, I'll echo what both the other two members of the council said. If everyone would very carefully read the ordinance number, it's 2022-05. No one on this council was on this council when this was started. Okay. This was started under the last council and the last mayor. It was not started by me. Okay. The next thing is I agree with everything else it said. Ever since we started, or not we, this city started this discussion in 2022, that the number of registered short-term rentals has grown dramatically. I've seen various numbers from there was like 6 or 7 registered in the state with the state from the city of Dunnellon. Now it's up to 26. That's a pretty dramatic increase. What also tells me if you weren't registered, then you weren't paying your state in sales tax. Okay, because I contacted the VRBO member, nice guy named Nick. They don't question it and they don't collect it and they don't tell you to collect it. So anyway, that was my discussion with him. But what I'm trying to say is, as far as the fire inspections, there will be no fire inspections of short-term rentals until we do annual fire inspections of all businesses in this town, which has been required for years. It's just ever since we lost our fire department, we haven't done that. That will be corrected. And until we inspect all businesses, the VRBOs or the short-term rentals will not be inspected. And that's really all I got to say. Okay. All right. And again, I want to remind everybody, if we pass this tonight, it will not go effective till at least March of 2024 to get all the forms in place and all the corrections like fire inspections and everything in place. So everyone knows how to operate their short-term rental. Now, can I have a motion on ordinance ORD 2022-05 to be read by title only?
Mayor, just a few things I'd like to present on this. And as of course, you know, I'm not an advocate for this ordinance or against it. Just want to provide some facts and provide the status of the ordinance as well. As you know, this is not a zoning ordinance, and the fire inspections have been addressed. Businesses within the city of Dunnellon are required per the city's fire chapter to be inspected. One of the requirements within the city's fire chapter is there is within that code an adoption of 69A43 already, which is also the Florida Administrative Code provision that applies to the vacation rentals and that is integral to this chapter of the ordinance in chapter 18, specifically addressing vacation rentals. So that is also included within the fire code that the city that has adopted. As far as the status of the ordinance remains unchanged as you've seen it since the initial workshop and first reading, with one exception that I discussed with Mandy under section 18-243 violations, remedies, and enforcement. It's a clarification as opposed to a change. But the clarification there, and this is on line 451, previously that the remedy was directed to the city's catch-all phrase, which is part of Florida statutes generally requires a lawsuit and prosecution on behalf of the city in court to pursue a fine or pursue jail time, which is something that wouldn't be pursued in this type of a case. So this change up here simply references, because there's been a lot of discussion within this council of looking to the magistrate and utilizing the magistrate process. It specifically references the magistrate process. Now, the magistrate process already accompanies this ordinance. That's why it's not a change. But since there were some questions and comments and discussions of the magistrate, now it's specifically contained within the ordinance just to clear up any potential confusion. Now, that doesn't limit the other remedies. They're all contained within the Florida statutes, within those catch-all provisions pertaining to code enforcement. So nothing has changed per se, just the language from perhaps a code enforcement official, if someone other than Chad comes on and takes a look at it and isn't familiar with it, to direct them to the right place if they just are coming on and don't have that knowledge. So I think it's something that the vacation rental owners well and the council so went ahead and suggested that change. Other than that, everything is identical. And I have no further comments unless you have questions for me. Just a reminder, exactly what the mayor said is correct. This ordinance would not become effective until April 1st, 2024. And in the meantime, the city can take a look at the code enforcement provisions within its code, the fire prevention provisions within its code, because they can be better tailored. That can be looked at. And, certainly if there's something that turns out to be unwieldy or doesn't work for the city, this ordinance can be amended by council at any time. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, but I do not have anything else to present this evening otherwise.
I have one other question, and since it was brought up by one of the members of the short-term rental, if a home was constructed with a proper permit and does not meet a requirement of one closet per bedroom, how is that handled? Is it grandfathered in, or do they have to adjust that?
Not quite following exactly what you mean. So if it's constructed previously under a different code.
Right.
Go back to that provision there. That is line under 197, any room which has. Oh. Right. Per the definition, the way it's constructed right now, it's not addressing that issue. So if there are older homes that do not have closets, they simply wouldn't be considered a bedroom. Now, that's the same when it comes to properties, listed on the property appraiser site and so forth. Without that closet, the bedroom's not considered. So that can stay as is. You've heard some concerns from residents regarding that, or you can simply add that, a piece of furniture can come in a certain size or whatever, and qualify as a closet. That certainly is within council's election. And we could change that on the spot if that's something you want to entertain, or bring it forth in a short amendment within the following months before it becomes effective.
Okay. All right. Okay. I just wanted to address the other concern. I have a motion to move on this ordinance and read by title only.
I move we move forward and read by title only.
Okay. I have a second.
Second.
Okay.
Second, sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mandy?
Ordinance number ORD 2022-05, an ordinance of the city of Dunnellon creating chapter 18, article 8, vacation rentals of the city's code of ordinances, providing for construction and definitions, providing for annual vacation rental registration, providing for inspections, providing general regulations, providing for violations, enforcement and remedies, providing for exemptions, providing for appeals, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. I get a proposed motion to move on this ordinance and for it to be approved.
I move the motion that the ordinance be approved as read.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That takes care of that. Okay. All right. Now, again, I want everybody to really understand that this ordinance will not take place until we have everything in place to handle it. And any concerns that people have or any issues with fire inspection or anything else, if you would bring them to us, we will make sure that we address those. As far as fire inspections, we are working on that, and we're about to announce something for fire inspections for everybody in this town that runs a business. Okay, let's go to the next item. We're gonna have, oh, where's that other script? Okay.
Checking a little detail. I know that you had opened it. Did it get closed? The public hearing?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
I did.
thank you. I was just confirming that the public hearing got.
Yeah, I
closed.
know. I did. I'll try to follow the script now. The first one wasn't on the script. Okay, Mayor shall read the following. All right, this is a public hearing for the final millage rate and final budget for the city of Dunnellon for 2023-2024 year. The final millage rate for the city of Dunnellon is 5.6933%, which is 0% greater than the rollback rate. Final budget proposal is $4,310,005. I now gavel down at 6:26 p.m. I close of the regular meeting and open up the public hearing for the staff. First, make a presentation, then to anyone else who wishes to address the council on the proposed millage rate for 2023-2024 budget. Jan, would you like to handle that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Honorable Mayor and City Council, pursuant to Part 1, Section 20 of the City Charter, the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023-24 is submitted for review and adoption. The first document is the fiscal year 2023-24 proposed budget summary. This document provides a line item review of multiple prior fiscal year's actuals, fiscal year 2022-23 budget, actuals as of March 31st, 2023, and projected year-end 2023. The second document is fiscal year 2023-24 detail line item budget, which provides the individual amounts that make up the total of each line item. These documents combined represent the city's budget plan for the upcoming fiscal year. I'm first going to go over the current fiscal year 2022-23 budget highlights. With the general fund, transfers in are projected to come in under budget, primarily due to capital projects canceled or advancing to the new fiscal year. Revenue is projected to come in slightly over budget, primarily due to Hurricane Ian reimbursement. Expenses for fiscal year 2022-23 are projected to be $144,185 under budget, primarily due to the projects carried forward or canceled, as outlined in the transfers in portion of this presentation. The net effect to the overall general fund budget is a projected surplus of approximately $18,000. On April 3rd, 2023, the chief of the Dunnellon Police Department announced his exit plan, as well as the exit plan for the entire Dunnellon Police Force. It was stated for the immediate future, the Marion County Sheriff would take over law enforcement in the city. Council moved swiftly to ensure that the city would continue to have a fully operational police department. Chris Scaglione was sworn in as police chief with the task of rebuilding the department. Chief Scaglione worked diligently with the city's human resource department to recruit and hire officers with a combined 45 years of service, and with the finance officer to replace outdated equipment and secure the department's IT infrastructure. He replaced equipment with updated technology, which includes body cameras and the brand new Taser 10. The Dunnellon Police Department is the first agency in the state of Florida to obtain this modernized taser equipment, and the officers will also become instructors on the use of this new technology. Within 78 working days, Chief Scaglione rebuilt the department, and Dunnellon police officers are back on the road patrolling the city. Following the resignation of the former Public Works Manager, the city appointed our part-time code enforcement officer, Chad Ward, to fill the vacancy and combine the two positions. Chad and Matt Pudlow worked diligently to identify deficiencies and inefficiencies, both in the department and citywide, which resulted in significant savings to the city. Inoperable equipment and vehicles have been declared as surplus and sold, and new vehicles and equipment have been purchased as replacements. 2 positions in the department have been promoted, and 2 new service workers have been hired, resulting in a full staff complement. The city clerk, with the assistance of Vice Mayor Inskeep, successfully negotiated a 3-year contract with the Florida Police Benevolent Association for the bargaining unit members of the police department. Negotiations focused on competitive pay for the police officers in order to ensure the city is in a position to recruit and retain qualified law enforcement officers. The negotiations were amicable and did not require the services and expense of the city's labor attorney. In addition to addressing police officer salaries, City Council directed staff to conduct an in-house analysis excuse me, of all other staff salaries. In June 2023, the City Council raised the minimum wage to $15 per hour and authorized immediate adjustments to personnel below the new minimum wage. The city clerk conducted an analysis of neighboring cities and proposed a new salary classification plan, as well as adjustment to wages of 4 additional staff members. These adjustments have been incorporated into the fiscal year 2023-24 budget. As of June 30, 2023, the general fund cash on hand is $7,145,362. A couple general fund accomplishments, City Hall carpet replacement, which has begun with carpet here in the chamber, is brand new. And our city volunteers over the past 11 months, and with a minimum of 2 to 10 volunteers per project, accomplished many projects, beautification of City Hall, Ernie Mills Park beautification, river cleanup, and city boat ramp surveys, to name a few. Moving on to the Tax Increment Financing District, better known as CRA, expenses, funding reserved and set aside for grants to residential and commercial property owners to assist with property renovations is $50,000. On February 11th, 2019, City Council moved to authorize Marion County to commence with Blue Run of Dunnellon Park restroom project in accordance with the management plan. And on the screen, you'll see the funding summary for that project. The original commitment is $30,000. $18,000 has been spent to date. Additional commitment of $23,400 from the canceled 125th anniversary park funds, and an additional commitment in 2023 of $175,000 for a total commitment of $210,400. This is for Marion County to construct a restroom facility at Blue Run Park. In fiscal year 2016-2017, the city again appropriated $30,000 to this project. We have carried forward the remaining $12,000 of that original $30,000 commitment, and the City Council / CRA board has removed the additional commitment of $198,400 from the new year fiscal 2023-2024 CRA budget. Other highlights overall, we're looking at, I think I apologize. My pages were out of order. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the new fiscal year budget and provide some budget highlights. which I just gave some of because of the pages being out of order. So I will repeat those. But moving forward into the new fiscal year, the city has decreased the millage rate from 6.3 mils to 5.6933 mils for the new fiscal year. The 5.6933 millage rate is 0% greater than the rollback rate of 5.6933 mils. Property values have increased approximately 14% citywide. The proposed millage rate for the certification of taxable value is 7 mils, which was approved at the July 12th, 2023 council meeting. The budget is balanced without utilizing reserves to offset operational costs. The general fund for fiscal year 2023-24 operating budget is $4,310,305 and consists of the following percentages of total budget. Personnel expenses, 35.9%, operating expenses, 26.7%, capital expenses, 31.1%, debt service, 4.1%, and 2.2% of budget will be retained and deposited into restricted operating and capital reserves at year-end September 30, 2024. Expenses have decreased over fiscal year 22-23 by $462,267, primarily due to capital expenditures associated with postponement of construction of a new police facility and new capital equipment that was purchased in fiscal year 22-23. The tax income and financing district budget for the new fiscal year is proposed at $622,275, which is an 11% decrease over fiscal year 2022-23. This is primarily due to a decrease in funding from reserves for capital projects. The TIFT operating fund budget consists of the following percentages of total budget. Personnel expenses, 19.2%, operating expenses, 6.6%, capital expenses, 1.9%, grants and aid, 72.3%. There are no capital projects funded in the proposed budget. However, TIFT is providing funding for grant funding with FDOT in the amount of $2.5 million for a multimodal enhancement project for redesign and inclusion of a pedestrian and bike path along East Pennsylvania Avenue, County Road 484. The CRA board has committed $350,000 as local match to help fund this project. Excuse me. Marion County is going to is planned on constructing a restroom facility at Blue Run Park. The city has had appropriated $30,000 to the project. $18,000 was spent in 2016-2017, and the CRA board has committed the remaining $12,000 toward the project. The City Council CRA board has removed the additional commitment of $198,400 from the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Other overall highlights. There's funding for a new enterprise reporting system and software implementation and training in the amount of $85,000. There's a new generator for the police department at $87,350. And in public works, along with a few other projects, the ARPA stormwater and roadway enhancement project, which is 100% grant funded at this point. There's $846,026 earmarked for next year. The budget has been prepared with input from all departments. Council's participation, guidance, and overall support of staff's efforts are greatly appreciated. And this concludes my presentation and review of prior year accomplishments and new fiscal year goals.
Thank you, Jan. Do we have anybody in the public that would wish to address the city council on either the millage rate or the budget this time?
I don't have anyone signed up.
Okay, anybody on the council like to make a comment on any of this? Good, we're good. Okay. now that all comments have been heard, it is 6:40 PM. I closed the public hearing and held discussion on proposed millage and the 23-24 budget and reopen the regular meeting. Okay. Can I get a resolution that? Wait a minute. Yeah, can I get a resolution on resolution 2023-20? Wait a minute, that's number 5. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So we finished that, right?
We need a motion, resolution into the record.
Oh, okay.
You want me to read it? Okay.
Yeah.
I move resolution RES 2023-20, setting the final 2023 tax millage rate at 5.6933 mils. Be approved as read.
Get a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Passes unanimously. Is there,
I gotta read it.
oh, okay.
Resolution number RES 2023-20, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dunnellon, Florida, adopting the final millage rate for the City of Dunnellon for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023, and ending on September 30, 2024. Whereas the City Council for the City of Dunnellon met on September 13, 2023 at 5:30 PM at City Hall, 20750 River Drive, Dunnellon, Florida, 34431, to consider the tentative amount of the tax millage to be collected on all real and personal property in the City of Dunnellon, Florida for the year 2023 in the amount of 5.6933 mils. And whereas the City Council of the City of Dunnellon, Florida does hereby adopt its final millage rate of 5.6933 mils to be levied for the general fund upon all real and tangible personal property located within the boundaries of the above named taxing authority. And whereas the final levy of 5.6933 mils is 0% greater than the rollback rate of 5.6933 mils. And whereas the final millage rate of 5.6933 is for the calendar year 2023 to fund the expenses for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023 and ending September 30th, 2024. Duly adopted by the City Council at a regular meeting held on the 27th day of September, 2023.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt resolution RES 2023-20, setting the final millage rate of 5.6933 for the year 2023-24?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. For the record, the final millage rate now adopted by the City Council is 0% greater than the rollback rate of 5.6933%. Okay. Make sure I'm in the right place. Next one, the CRA. Yes. Okay. Need to- It is now 6:43. I closed the regular meeting of the City Council and opened the special CRA meeting. Okay. Is there a motion to read resolution 2023-19 into the record?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, man.
Oh. Resolution number RES 2019. Resolution of the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency adopting a budget for the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency for fiscal year 2023-2024, providing for repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Whereas the City Council of the City of Dunnellon, Florida adopted ordinance number 2000-03, creating the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency, or CRA, pursuant to Part 3, Chapter 163 Florida statutes. And whereas the CRA is a dependent special district under Chapter 189 Florida statutes, known as the Uniform Special District Accountability Act of 1989. And whereas the act requires all special districts, including dependent special districts such as CRA, to adopt a budget for each fiscal year by resolution. And whereas the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency desires to comply with this requirement of the act and takes this action in order to do so. Section 1, recitals. The foregoing recitals are deemed true and correct and are hereby fully incorporated herein by this reference and are deemed a material part of this resolution. Section 2, adoption of the budget. The board members of the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency do hereby approve and adopt a budget attached hereto as Exhibit A for the CRA for fiscal year 23-24, beginning October 1, 23 and ending on September 30, 24. Section 3, repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions. All prior resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of the conflict. Section 4, severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this resolution is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portion hereto. Section 5, effective date. This resolution shall become effective immediately upon adoption by the board members of the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency. Adopted at a regular meeting of the board members of the City of Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency this 27th day of September 2023.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt resolution RES 2023-19 adopting the CRA budget in the amount of $622,275 for the City of Dunnellon as proposed for the 23-24 fiscal year?
So I move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
And council, I'm sorry to interrupt, and if I missed it, entirely my fault, but I didn't hear if public comment was taken on it.
Oh, it
And
wasn't.
if it
I'm
was, my
sorry.
apologies.
It was not. I'm sorry. Is there any public comment on the CRA budget from the public? Anybody on Zoom, Mandy?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I totally missed it. Even though it's in red. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, passes unanimously. I now close the special meeting and on CRA, the special CRA meeting, and reopen special city council meeting. Okay.
There's a lot of special.
Yeah.
The budget is special.
Okay, we'll go to item number 7.
I'm sorry, Mayor, could you gavel and say what time you're reopening this meeting?
Well, I haven't gotten to that yet, but I'm about to.
Okay. That's where I'm at.
Okay, all right. Let's see, I close that meeting. All right. Wait a minute, that's missing. Okay, we'll start that. Okay, it is now 6:47. I want to open the special meeting to discuss resolution RES 2023-21. And I will accept all comments from the public. Any comments? Haven't seen none. Any on Zoom, Andy?
No, sir.
We're all good. Okay. Is there a motion to read resolution 20-23-21 into the record?
So moved.
Second, any discussion? On favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Mandy, please read.
Resolution RES 2023-21. Resolution adopting the budget for the City of Dunnellon for the fiscal year commencing on October 1, 23 and ending on September 30th, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Dunnellon, Florida, that the proposed expenditures in the final budget are $4,310,305. The budget is based upon taxable value of real property of $219,364,250. personal property of $25,134,282, centrally assessed property of $501,236, and anticipated non-ad valorem revenues of $3,751,147. Final budget is approved and shall become effective at the beginning of the 2023-24 fiscal year, and the taxing authority funds may be expended commencing on October 1, 2023, and ending on September 30th, 2024. The funds of the fiscal year 23-24 final budget not expended during the fiscal year 2023-24 may be used and expended during subsequent fiscal years. Duly adopted by the city council at the regular meeting held on the 27th day of September 2023.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt resolution RES 2023-21, setting the final general fund budget in the amount of $4,310,305 to the city of Dunnellon as proposed for the 23-24 fiscal year?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I gavel down at 6:51. I want to close the special meeting for the budget and reopen the special city council meeting. Okay. Is there any amendments to this?
No.
Okay, that was the next note I had here. All right, item number 8, approval of the final tax increment financing district budget. I thought we already done that.
You did
Okay.
through the CRA board.
Uh-huh.
Now you're approving it as a
city
council
Oh, as a council.
for the
Oh,
citywide,
okay.
as part of the citywide budget.
all right, I don't see closing and opening. Is that okay?
You don't have to do that again.
Okay, good deal. I just don't want to mess up any more than I have. Is there any public comments on the tax increment financing district budget? Seeing none. Is there a motion to adopt the final tax incentive financial district budget in the amount of $622,275?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Okay. Golly, isn't this fun? All right. I think that's, did I get it all? Did I get that all?
Hard part's
All
over.
right, got all that done. I'm glad it's only once a year.
We got it.
All right. Go on to discuss item number 9. And again, this is something I added because I felt like this meeting wouldn't last for 3 hours, and it hasn't. Was a brief discussion on form number 6 that is now going to go into effect. Well, actually, it's for reporting in period ending December 31, 2023, and you have to file this form, I think it's by the end of June of 2024. I have read the instructions in the form very carefully, and I've asked Andrew to, first of all, this form, this is the first year it's going to be required of elected members of city council and county governments and whatever. Prior to this, it was only required of certain other people in the state, which did not include the city council. Because of this change, I felt like we ought to all at least understand that there's a change coming and have a brief discussion on that change. And I know at first reading, I was pretty taken back by it. I've read it and studied it a lot more over the weekend, and I'm still a little concerned about some things, but it's not as harsh as I thought it would be. But Andrew, would you mind kind of telling us what you know at this point on this form as far as it affects us on the
Yes,
city council?
I'd be happy to, sir. And this is not something that I'm an expert in. You know, I've filled out the same form that you all have filled out for my role with the clients that I have that are municipal clients. So Form 6, really, this is my first exposure since I don't represent state officials in my practice.
Mhm.
The League of Cities, and I have sent to Mandy, a link where there is a presentation. And I think that'll certainly, it could be helpful. I have not viewed it, but I've heard good feedback on it. And in addition, there's some information on the League of Cities site, and I can send you a link to that. And that's significant because there's a sample, and I'll touch on that in a second. But what I do know about it, and again, this is my understanding, so please take that for what it is. The League of Cities is certainly the expert on it. But just kind of hitting the high points of it, what this is intended to do and where it goes beyond what you see in a Form 1 is a real calculation, a requirement calculation of net worth. Just like when you look at a Form 1 and, they're basically evaluating liabilities and basic sources of income, this goes a step beyond to really take a snapshot, I think, of each official's financial status. Certain things need to be disclosed, certain things don't. And a lot of the concerns that I've heard from just about every jurisdiction I represent is like, hey, I've got stuff in my house and XYZ is valuable. I don't want people to know what I have. Do I have to tell people what these things are? No, don't. Things that are valued over $1,000 and so forth. Now, what the commission is requesting is an aggregate sum that goes in along with all other income and so forth, so that there is a picture of value. If somebody has valuable fine art or valuable jewelry, valuable personal effects, firearms are specifically mentioned, as well as I can give you a list of the personal effects, firearms, jewelry. I had it here a second ago, but I moved it. Cash, stock, bond, certificate, those are more of the financial, but for what it's worth, I'm sure it'll come up as we discuss this a bit more as I'm reading through it. But basically personal property, and that has to be disclosed in an aggregate. Now, some things, investments and so forth, need to be disclosed within the instructions, intangible property being a somewhat more descriptive. Some of the examples, if it's a bond, for example, list stock, Williams Construction Company, bonds, Southern Water and Gas, if it's over a certain amount. So there's some instructions on how to identify or describe certain assets, and individuals on the council are not required to disclose assets owned solely by your spouses. So, if someone owns a valuable wedding ring, engagement ring, and so forth, and that belongs to your spouse, that is not something that needs to be contained in the aggregate. That gets touchy with some of my clients. I've had specific questions about, because some people have jewelry that is extremely valuable. So some of the things I say may be like, well, that's a little weird, but I've gotten a lot of very, I won't say weird, but just some questions with some very specific, everybody in the answer kind of is going around to the same sort of answer. It's a general sort of aggregate. Now, as I understand it, one of the things I'll point out, the 2023 form, I don't know yet. I don't know that there will be changes to the 2023 form or the instructions, but we're still looking at the 2022. That's what's available on really it's the 2021 that's available on the website. I haven't heard about any
The Form
changes,
6?
being proposed to it. But I'm not sure. The League of Cities may have some information on that. These forms are due July 3rd, 2023. Apparently there has been some buzz about the legislature maybe looking at it that I've just heard. It's completely unverified. But maybe, that is during the session. I don't know what will happen. And I haven't heard anything from the League of Cities. I'm happy to reach out to them if you would like me to. When you go to the League of Cities site, and I'm happy to send that link to you all if you would like it.
Please do.
The League of Cities does provide an example, and it is Governor DeSantis's full and public disclosure of his financial interests on the
Right.
site. And interestingly, when you look through it, he did not disclose any assets, household goods, and personal effects. So I don't know what advice he received, because the language is a little bit finicky here, but I will point out that he did not provide that information. In fact, he wrote not applicable N/A. I'm assuming that's what that means. So there is an example that you can review, filled out by the highest office in the state.
Mhm.
In addition, there are the other forms, I think the Form 1 and the previous Form 6 from 2021.
Okay.
So if you have any other specific questions for me, and there's also a frequently asked questions a link on that site. I'm not sure it's incredibly helpful. I was just reviewing it in advance of this meeting.
Mhm.
But it may have some questions answered that you all have. Really, that's what I can provide in general, but if you have specific questions, I can follow up with the League of Cities, investigate further or assist in any way I can. I know it's new for everybody. It's new for me too. And definitely want to make sure that you get all the best information, the most accurate information that you can get.
Do you have any idea who's pushing this? I mean, why it suddenly came up or who pushed it up to
I can't say which, I don't know which particular representatives, and whose bill it was.
Right.
What I can say, and because of my role, of course, I'm a home rule advocate. And what I can just say in general are some things that you've heard me say over and over again when these type of things come up. I don't know who is pushing it. That really doesn't benefit what the information that I'm trying to put out to council members. So it's not something I follow closely. What I do follow closely is what bills are on, up and coming and patterns. And this past year, I have never seen anything like it. I think I made a joke at a previous council meeting where I told you the good news is it could have been worse. And that's the information that I have. I mean, there is just a complete reversal on a lot of stances when it comes to home rule. And we're seeing a pattern of more and more preemption and limitation on local government powers. And, that can be attributed to perhaps a legislative representative getting a little bit angry at something happening in their hometown. I think that's what, promulgated some of the changes with trees a few years ago. But this pattern seems to be a bit more of that. And that is just my frank observation that, it's just based on a sense of having done this for a long time. So what type of agenda? I think it's just a limitation, and perhaps it's pure speculation, but I know that the representatives have to file the same form.
Mhm.
Perhaps they wanted everybody else to file it.
So I was just asking because I brought Mandy that thing that I received from Palmetto Bay about the Homes Act DeSantis put in, where basically it looks like they're taking away zoning, being able to fight big, large
Developments and stuff.
large developments. They're basically just saying that developers can put it wherever they want and municipalities can't fight it.
That one's a bit more pointed if you're talking about what I think you're talking
Yeah.
about, and we can talk about that too. But I believe you're talking about the Live Local Act.
Yeah, the live local and
Yes.
So it's
Wow.
just something to come up that maybe next week at the workshop we can bring up and
Sure. I'm ready to touch on it whenever I have
Yeah.
some notes on that too.
I don't know
because
if
I
you, if
want to talk
Julianne,
about
if you knew about that, or Tim, you knew about that, the Live Local Act.
No, I didn't. Mm-mm. Let me back up. It sounds like personal property you kind of lump together. If you disclose it, and it sounds like DeSantis didn't even disclose it, which seems a little odd, but that's okay. Then you need to disclose any tangible property, and I assume you need to disclose personal property. Is that just, again, in total, in the aggregate? Like if you, like me, I only have one house, but if I had 2 or 3 houses, I just put down real property in a total, or how do you describe that?
But as far as, let me see if there's a section on real property on the instructions net worth. Well, the value of any assets over $1,000 is reported in the asset sections. Let me see if there's any instructions on that particular. Real property, yes. Identify by providing the street address of the property. If it has no street address, identify by describing the
Okay.
location so that it can be found essentially. So
Mhm.
yes, basically the market value. There's some instructions on calculating the market value, and so yeah, there's some instructions on dealing with real property in particular.
Okay. And you covered this pretty quick, and I wrote down bonds and stocks. Do you do that in the aggregate, or again, are you required? If you happen to own stocks, say a stock over $1,000, would you have to list it, or you just put down stock investments?
The instructions here with intangibles, intangible property, identify the type of property and the business entity or person to which or whom it relates. Do not simply list stocks and bonds or bank accounts.
Okay,
For example, list stock, Williams Construction Company, bonds, Southern Water and Gas, bank accounts, First National Bank, Smith Family Trust, promissory note and mortgage owned by Jane and John.
so you gotta list those out. Okay, got it. Okay. Well, I appreciate that because it's something that's been floating around, and I know I've studied a little bit, and I wanted to get more guidance. If you could send us that website that we can get to, I would like to really read over that and get a lot more familiar with it, and then maybe we'll bring it up again at a later date.
I heard you mention like a June date, and when I had talked to the supervisor of elections, I understood that if you sat past the end of December, that you would be reflecting this
Oh, yeah.
information.
Yeah,
So I guess for some reason I thought it was due at the end of the year, but you're saying it's due.
the form's not due. You said July 3rd. I knew it was June 30, July 1, right in there is when it's due. But if you are on a council into January, you're going to be required to file this form.
Unless the law changes.
Unless the
Between
law
now.
changes. Right now, it's as of December 31st. But something about the way they wrote it is if something happens and you leave council after December 31st, but before the date the form's due, you're required to file a form.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, it's real confusing how they did that, and it's very clear when I read the instructions that if you're on council January 1,
That's right.
2, or 3, then you have to file the form even if you leave before the July date.
I think that's real accurate. I just was a little thrown
Yeah.
off in the beginning. Thanks.
But I really would like to study these examples and see what disclosure we need to make and how we handle it. Okay, good deal. Thank you, Andrew.
Very welcome.
Very good. Okay, number 10, any council comments?
Did we talk about that empty seat down there?
Oh, yeah, we could. We're gonna talk about it in October, but I guess Mandy said we have gotten one person interested in that. I hope we get more than one, not to single somebody out, but I think sometimes if you have more than one person, kind of like when you came on, interested in a seat, then there's a pretty good discussion and we have a better opportunity to make a good selection. Not that one isn't good or one is bad. I hope we get more than one, but we have one right now,
Great.
from what I understand.
We do. We have one. We've had multiple inquiries, but we've only had one actual application received, and that was from Art Jones.
When is the deadline for them to submit that, Mandy?
I think it was today.
Oh, was it today? Okay. I didn't know if it was today or the end of the
Oh.
month.
September 28th, sorry. So Thursday.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
okay. All right, so they may be, somebody will submit one, and I hope they do if they're interested to take on that position.
And
Okay,
that was just simply because I wanted to be able to present those applications to you on Monday at
right,
your workshop.
right.
But there's nothing carved in stone that if somebody walked in the meeting that night and put in an application that you could reject it. You don't have to. I mean, you can accept them as long as you want to, but we just set a deadline
Right.
to
Right.
try and have them ready for you for Monday.
Okay, good deal. Good question. Any other question?
Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Go for it.
All right, I'm gonna take on a subject that seems to have taken on a life of its own, like things tend to happen. And subject is 9 Island Cove. We got some emails from the president of the Rainbow River Club that contain a bunch of erroneous information. And I'm just gonna go with my notes. Some people keep repeating the same rhetoric and consistently conflict with their prior on record comments as it suits their mission. As with past self-interest debacles shoved on the city taxpayers, taxpayers will once again, debacle shoved on taxpayers, will once again leave the taxpayers with the cost and issues that will by far outweigh the limited benefit for the vast majority of taxpayers. The city does not need to be involved. This is my opinion. Want to be on the record. The city does not need to be involved with this effort. Mr. Gissy is a good example of this. He did what he did with his land and put it in the Florida Forever program with no city involvement. Based on some things I'm going to read in a minute, I can only conclude that others that want to push this, the city's involvement, really only want the taxpayers' dollars. Going to go on a bit of a Wally rant. We spend so much time trying to keep people on the fringes from dipping into Dunnellon taxpayers' funds that it uses up so much of our time that we should actually be that it limits us on focusing on what the city taxpayers really want done with their money. Instead, we spend most of our time doing damage control with past poor decisions and trying to keep the folks on the fringes out of the taxpayers' pockets for their pet projects. When I look into the records and I see that after the past mayor, very shortly after the past mayor signed the letter for 9 Island Park, committing the city to many obligations that are going to come with a lot of cost that were part of the application, and asked the staff to submit that letter and the application. If you go online and you look at websites and you see who owns property out there, there were properties that were bought out there right after that letter was sent. Some of the people that are the loudest online, in print, everywhere that are pushing this are those that bought property out there. It looks like to me, people are speculating on an investment and they want the taxpayers to satisfy that investment. To me, this looks like another scandal getting ready to come on the horizon, but we're not going to realize it until after it's done. And that's what's happened here in the past. Myself, I'm not going to be part of the scandal. I'm not going to vote for this. And I'm not going to let the taxpayers be victims again due to the same behavior. I would also ask our county and state representatives that are entertaining this to exercise caution as they listen to these folks, as my research again finds the people pushing this the hardest bought property after the past mayor signed and asked staff to submit this application. To me, I'm just going to be frank. To me, it looks like somebody spray painting a turd gold. All right. They want us to walk by it. They want to repeat so many times. It's gold, it's gold, it's gold. There are good people out there that are falling onto this. You want to trust folks. All right. But we've seen this too many times. Myself, we turn this thing over, to turn this gold nugget, supposedly gold nugget over. To me, it looks like a turd, smells like a turd. I don't need to taste it to know that it's going to be a turd. The other thing I would like to state, and county representatives to know, this city is governed and represented by a council, not self-appointed liaisons or self-appointed historians that put out false information and leave us to figure out the truth and clean up the mess they left behind. That's the end of my rant. Thank you.
You sure that's it?
Yes, sir.
I think that's very clear, but I agree with a lot of what you said. And again, some of my research supports that as well. So, okay. Do you have any comments?
This so fast, I was over talking to Viola the other day because I had an idea for the Boomtown, since the Rainbow Springs didn't want the festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why don't we combine the art festival with Boomtown? And she said they've already worked on that with the chamber. So that should be I'd
Okay.
like to get, I know that you're the liaison with the chamber,
Right.
and I'd like to talk to them to give them some suggestions to how to lay out Boomtown next year. And basically, since we have the road blocked at Cedar Street, could we move the barricade back to the other side of Viola's Emporium? Or a couple of other places and have a line of vendors in the middle that would funnel the traffic through the people, our shops, rather than them separating. Just an idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's good thoughts. Now, the event is managed by the Chamber of Commerce, right?
correct.
Okay, so we as a city council would probably defer to the Chamber of Commerce to make those decisions.
Correct, right. It's with what you're stipulating, since my understanding is after being involved in the last one, with the whole permitting and all that, since it's a city street, all we got, the chamber just has to fill out the permit correctly, show
Yeah.
where we're going to shut down and all that, and work with,
No, it was just an idea, since the street shut down here, shut it down 100 feet down, so that
Right.
we get more traffic through our business.
absolutely.
Good point.
Is
Yeah,
it
Good idea.
event, the Two Rivers Music Festival?
Two River Music Festivals is October 14th.
It's in about 2 weeks.
But
Is that
that's the music festival.
Mhm.
It's the one Boomtown Days and the Art
Boomtown.
Festival are the
Yeah.
two that are going to.
No, it's not the one in 2 weeks. No, it's the one
Okay.
that's.
Two
probably
different
gonna be
I
days.
in
think
the fall,
everything
spring.
that's coming up is on East Penn.
Right, right.
Correct.
There's nothing gonna be on West Penn.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. That it? You gonna?
I just speak really quickly on what Tim said about Night Island, because I will not be at Monday's workshop, but I will go on the record saying that I agree with both of you that it's not something that the city needs to take on, and that there is a lot of misinformation out there. I got an email just a couple of hours ago that says we can all see now that there's no costs if the city signs the lease for Night Island Cove with Florida Forever. And even Mandy confirmed this. There's no projects, there's no match, there's no cost. The issue is moot. And I just think that we're going to have to agree to disagree with some people in the community on that. And I'll continue to make these emails public record so that everyone has access to them. But in my absence on Monday, I will just say that I agree that it's not something that we can manage.
All right. Good point. Are you two gonna be here Monday?
I'll be here.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna be. Okay. Just want to make sure we got 3. All right. Department heads. Mandy, would you like to start this?
Yes, sir. As you can see, the carpet installation has begun.
Mhm.
Very similar to the carpet that was in here. So
Right.
if you don't notice a real noticeable difference, walk over there and then come back in here.
Gotcha.
And you can definitely tell.
Okay.
There is a huge difference. They completed the carpet in here and in the conference room. And they're gonna do the next, in this other side of the building in phases.
Okay.
Because of the way things have to be moved around, they're gonna have to do it in
Right.
over several different phases over the next couple of weeks.
Sure.
I, per your direction at the last meeting that we had, I have put my evaluation on the October 2nd workshop for your review.
Okay.
If you haven't already sent me something, try and get me something as soon as possible on that, just so I can have everything compiled for the workshop.
You mean your personal evaluation,
Yes,
the one I did?
yes,
Oh, okay,
yeah, you're good.
I'm good. Okay.
So I talked with Commissioner Bryant today and about their upcoming visit on the October 2nd. She asked, and I wanted to try and get an email out to you all today, but then we had a lightning strike. We lost power, we lost internet for a period of time, but that's all back up. But she said if there are any questions that you have of her or Mr. Couillard in advance of that meeting, they would like to have some of those questions in advance so that they can prepare. So if you would just please email me any questions you have. I know that I've talked with some of you individually and you've asked me some questions that I may not have been able to answer. So if you could just think about that, maybe by the end of the day tomorrow, if you have anything, just email it to me. I'll forward it, and that'll give them Friday and Monday to try and address any of that. And be prepared to speak with you all on Monday.
I do not know what the gist of this meeting is. So I'm absolutely not prepared.
What, for the meeting with them?
Correct.
Well, I asked them to come mainly to make sure they were well aware that we had taken the funding of Blue Run Park
Gotcha. Okay.
out of the budget.
I see.
They are well aware. I
And
assure
they're
you.
aware of that. The other thing that when I got to digging into all those agreements that are very, very, I noticed things like, okay, there's a member of the RRC that's on a council that oversees this along with Mr. Couillard. But those are the only two members of that board. And my question to them, and I'll send this to you, is that why isn't a member of this city council, or at least a resident of the city of Dunnellon, on that management board? Since the city's on the hook for whatever we decide to do sometimes. But any questions you may have about the management of that?
Okay.
And I guess the other question would be, okay, if you're aware that we're not gonna do the bathroom, what are y'all's plans? Are y'all gonna do it? Are you gonna not do it? I think the issue, I've heard that there may be someone on the Marion County Commission discussing possibly a tuber takeout at a different location.
Correct.
And if that's the case, and I think that you're the one that brought that up, that, you know, is there any plans for them to do that? Is there any discussions going on, and can they enlighten us on what's going on? Again, I'm trying to figure out, okay, if we're not gonna fund this bathroom, are they gonna do it? Are they not gonna do it? Are they considering moving it? Is everything gonna stay the same? But again, I think the other thing that I was alarmed at, again, when I got to reading all this, is no one on this council and no one from the city as a resident is on this board that manages the thing. And that, I just think that's a no-brainer. That should have
I
happened.
agree. I mean,
Well-
we got to the point now where we're bringing in county commissioners
Board.
Right.
for something that should be taken care of in one of those
Right.
lower level meetings.
No, clearly, and that's the reason I think if this goes on and we're gonna continue participating in this, and I'm not against that, then I think we ought to be represented on that board.
Right.
And those were the big things I had.
We have never formulated a board.
Correct.
There's a requirement in the management plan to have a board,
Right.
but that board has never been selected.
Well, I have outreach to ask about that board directly, and I was told by a leader of the RRC that the person named people who are on the board. And
Yeah, I
said,
have
well,
too.
how often do they meet? Could I get some of the minutes or the notes of the meeting? And that's why I think it's really good we're addressing it, because I think it's pretty loose right now. And I agree that to have the city council or a resident on it would make sense. So I think the important questions are who is on the board, if they're meeting, when are they meeting, and what does it look like, and how can we get on board and be part of it?
No, I agree. If it's never been elected, then that's fine. But I'm telling you, I've been told personally who's on it.
Me
And
too.
it's not anybody in the city.
The city has not. the city
Somebody's
has
not authorized that. But again,
anyone to that.
that's beyond the point. I think if
That's-
we haven't done that and we're going to really be part of Blue Run Park, I think we definitely need to set up a board and who is going to be the member.
And that was something that Lonnie was working to do before he left, was to create that board.
Okay,
But nothing ever became out of that. So it doesn't exist
right.
officially as a city board.
Okay,
Okay, number two, I did speak to Mr. Couillard about the alternate takeout.
uh-huh.
He said that is something they are exploring. However, they will still offer the 4-hour float at Blue Run Park, that they would not,
Okay,
they had no plans to do away with the 4-hour float. It's I forget what he calls it, but it's like the
Sure.
a midpoint or
big
something.
deal. You know, I mean, the original,
Mm-hmm.
and he said a lot of people still want to do it. So even if they do look at a shorter run, they will not do away with the 4-hour float.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, because these are just things I've heard and I'm just
Right.
trying to find out what do they know and don't know and what can they share with us?
Yeah.
About that. Okay.
So any other questions? And if you don't feel like it's necessary to have them here on Monday, if you want me to just try and get some of your questions answered, if you're not, I mean, because another thing that was brought up was, has the city council discussed allowing Marion County to just take over the management of the park altogether. I don't think that's a discussion that y'all had.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, if you want to wait a little bit, submit your questions, let me get them over to the county and then talk about it some more, or if you still want them here on Monday, I'll just let them know it's confirmed.
What do y'all think? I mean, my biggest thing with setting it that time was I wanted them to know that we took it out of the budget, and I didn't want them going down this train and realize the track ends.
Exactly. We don't want a backdoor.
And if they are aware of that, then maybe we just now send them a group of questions and get some answers and then decide later whether we want them here. I mean, I agree. I don't want them here just to have them here.
I think that's a way more prudent use of their time.
Okay.
I think we're
Well,
wasting
let's
their
do
time.
that. Let's all
Okay.
put together any questions we have. As long, my concern was we were sitting here with the budget, taking it out. And I thought, I'd hate for them to not realize, and I noticed their budget just hit the paper, so I want to make sure they knew it.
Well, if you will all send me your questions,
Okay.
and then if they don't have to be here on Monday, then there's not such a rush, but
Okay.
try and get me some questions. I can compile them. I'll say, let's just set a deadline at least, so I know when to expect to have everything.
I'd say the middle of October, we could all get questions and think through what
Maybe
we're gonna do.
Before your council meeting on the 11th.
Yeah, whenever that is, yeah. that'd be fine.
And then get those answered, and then and then at that point, if there needs to be a conversation or discussion between.
Because the other thing you've answered is, were they talking about a shorter run? And it sounds like, well, they are, but they're also gonna leave the longer run in there, so they are gonna need an access point out.
Right.
And that was the other thing. If they're not gonna need an access point out, then that would change a lot of what goes on down there. But if they are, then that's fine.
I think the other motivation in the meeting was it was high time in summer and there were so many issues down there. So I would just encourage everybody to roll in your questions and concerns about management of the park in the summer, which now that
Right.
it's passed, we all get a little lax. The
Exactly.
next summer, it'll be worse than last summer. So
Yeah.
we want to
That-
talk about safety and management of the park on the busy season.
And again, those are the kind of questions we probably need to ask. Can they help us with the safety? Can they help us with the number of people going in and out of that park? And I know our police is doing that. Is the sheriff gonna do that? Is Florida Wildlife gonna help us? I mean, how do we handle all that? Okay. All right, does that sound good? Yeah, let's don't bring them in. Okay, Mandy, anything else on your list?
I can't think of any.
Okay, Chad?
I don't have much, carpet's done, Public Works, got that done also. We just finished planting the 5 live oaks in Ernie Mills Park.
Wow.
So that's gonna all in, and tomorrow the beautification group will be there. So they'll be putting all the mulch and stuff around all the trees. And within the next 2 weeks, we'll finish up the signs, so in October, we'll be able to complete Ernie Mills and
Great.
for the opening. Besides that, really don't have anything. Yeah, just working on some stuff with the police department. We'll have some things coming up in the future. We'll discuss them with a couple projects.
Okay.
We're waiting on some pricing to come in to see.
Okay, Chris, our police chief, your honor.
Chad, well, he's come up. Can I just ask if there's any word on that lot next to Sawston Loaded? That's, I mean, soon we won't be able to see the sidewalk.
What is it?
The lot next to the restaurant Sawston Loaded. It's an empty lot.
Yeah, I have to see the address and look at my stuff.
Okay,
Got a bunch of things out on some
okay,
property maintenance things we sent out.
all right. I'll send it over. It's just getting to be like a jungle.
Okay, chief.
All right, things going good at the police department. I gotta thank, Public Works, Chad and Matt. They're coming over. They're doing a lot of work. They're doing some, you wanna call it remodeling and some painting for us, updating it. It's starting to look really nice over there. And then part of what Chad is gonna bring to you guys, got to talk about, that's why we need to talk to you guys coming up. So we can give you the heads up on that stuff. Our last hired officer will complete his FTO on Friday. So he'll be out on his own after that. We have had one officer that prior to us hiring them, they had put out a lot of applications. But we hired them first. And just in the past couple of weeks, they're now getting the return phone calls from these agencies wanting to hire them. And in front of that officer going, hey, we need to know. And they went, absolutely not. This is where I want to be.
Good,
It was pretty
good.
cool. So, and they said that they're gonna learn more working at this agency than they will going someplace else. So.
That's great.
that-
That's great. I will commend you. You and Ron really walked into a big problem, and I appreciate your hands-on working, even covering some shifts and getting this thing done and getting it up and running. And I know a number of residents have noticed that y'all are back out and have said things to me.
And I've talked to a few of the residents and they've come up and approached some problems that are here in the city. And I've been able to go, those have already been handled.
Good.
So we're already aware of that, it's being looked at and we're working on it. And Chad is involved, already working on a lot of this stuff. So they're like,
good.
wow, we've talked our ears off, people's ears off on this stuff. And nobody has done anything. We're like, well, we've already closed that. We already done this, already booted these people out or, already addressed that house here. And so they're very happy with that.
Great.
So, I've had contact with 2 retired officers that have come by just to say hi, see what's going on. They've stayed in contact with me and they're amazed at what has taken place over here. To the point that they are contacting the recruit schools. They actually want to go back to recruit school because their certifications have lapsed and so they can come back and work at Dunnellon.
Man, that's
So
good.
really cool.
That's good.
Last part here is October 12th at 10 a.m. We're working with the chamber. We're going to be doing a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new police department. Our new logos, our new signs, our new vehicle wraps. So I'm hoping the mayor could make it
The 12th, what time?
10 a.m.
Yeah.
October 12th.
I know I have a doctor's appointment that day. Let me check and see what time.
If not.
Oop, oop, oop. My appointment's at noon. Now I can move that if
No,
I.
it's just at 10 a.m. Just
Oh,
show
okay,
up.
10 a.m. Let me put it in here. I'll be there.
And so you can unveil the new vehicle.
Good deal. 10
From
a.m.
the back seat, though.
Why not? I mean,
Um,
I got arrested one time for the Heart Association and put in jail, so I've been there.
and then from that ribbon cutting ceremony is the Two Rivers Music Festival. That the police department is having a dunking booth there. And it's actually at the request of the citizens. And they asked that we do it and it actually works out great. Any of the money that we raise from that will help pay to wrap the other vehicles. And Julianne, Tim and Rex have volunteered to sit up there. We'll work out a schedule.
Is that on the 12th as well?
That's on the 14th.
Oh, the 4th. Well,
I
I
heard
won't be
you're out
here.
of town,
I won't be here.
so.
Let's
I
just hope
know.
a cold front doesn't come through.
That's, well, I won't get into my.
Mandy has graciously backed out.
I didn't realize when you asked me what day it was and I'm not gonna be in town.
But Jan is gonna sponsor a couple
Oh, you betcha.
softballs.
Oh, you betcha.
Uh,
Oh, I'm gonna recruit.
We have come by the police department, we have John Colomay, former semi-professional baseball player there. So that you might be able to hit a target.
Okay, I
So-
hope that's pay week because
so-
it's gonna be more than a couple.
All right, we'll get 2 cards out of it. And that's it. Things
Okay.
are going good there. And I can't ask for more out of you guys. You guys
Okay.
are awesome.
Great. Great, thank you. Okay, Andrew, any questions? Or Jan, I'm sorry. We'll just go to
I know
you.
you thought I was through.
Yeah, I was.
I just have one thing I want to announce to council. We have entered into a new program for reimbursement for disaster expenses, hurricane expenses, if we had an earthquake, anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
This program is through the Florida Division of Emergency Management. It's called FROC, which stands for Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation. What it does is, right now, it's only for projects that are $1 million or more. It will probably be opened up to smaller projects, which is what we have typically fallen into with past hurricanes. And it will provide advance funding for those disasters based on FEMA's estimate of an obligation of a project. So it still starts with FEMA. We still have to apply to FEMA like we have done with Hurricane Ian and with Hurricane Idalia. And what this is going to allow us to do in cooperation with Lieutenant Ron and the other department heads will have to bring involved. We're going to be doing a disaster readiness assessment, looking at the entire city. We put plans in place such as if a hurricane comes, I'm going to be manning a telephone, not doing my job. That might be one piece of a plan. Where are the employees going to be located? What are they going to do before, during, and after a disaster? So there's a lot of good things that's going to come of this, and we do have requirements. We have to have that disaster plan completed by December 31st. And then there's another assessment that's due by March. And we earn points for those. We can qualify for up to 80% advance funding. So if we were to have a major disaster, instead of waiting years to get reimbursed, we'd get it up front, as long as FEMA obligates the project. So we opted in. We had to opt in by September 30th. Otherwise, we would have had to wait 2 years. So we're just kind of getting in early. So that's all I have.
Do we need them to approve that?
No, not at all.
Okay, because I remember I signed that today and I wasn't sure.
The mayor gave me, authorized
Okay.
me to sign the application because I had to take a course
Right.
and get 100% on it. So I'll
Right.
admit I took it twice.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good deal. Okay. All right, Andrew.
Council, the only report I have is just to introduce the Live Local Act. It was included in the memorandum that I sent out, I think earlier in the month, or perhaps it was last month. And it's
Mhm.
one of the big changes, and we can discuss that at a later council meeting if you prefer, because it's pretty long. But this one piece of legislation is a bit more pointed, and it also is very impactful. And this piece of legislation is directed specifically at affordable housing. And it's significant, and there'll be a few things coming your way, including really local governments have to adopt resolutions identifying any property that they own, the city owns, that may be used for affordable housing. And if you do that, then it has to be utilized under a certain set of parameters. So you don't have to list certain properties on there, but that is significant. So that will be coming before you soon, since the deadline is technically October 1st, but given the short turnaround after the bill's enactment, really, I'm not aware of any cities that have, are going to meet that deadline, and there's not a penalty that I'm aware of for not meeting it. So either in October or November, you'll be getting something to see on that. And that's really one of the minor changes of the bill. So like I said, I won't go through it all, but the one thing that really to take away for any kind of future discussion, it's a big deal. And especially council members who are really interested in zoning and land development, which really is all of you. I know some of you focus more specifically on that area. The requirements here authorize certain types of developments, multifamily and low-income housing, to be built within commercial and mixed-use areas. And that completely trumps anything in the city's comp plan. Completely trumps anything in the city's zoning code. So the legislature has gone over local government's heads and said, you must allow this within your city. And whereas the city had a say before, no longer has any say. So that is some of the most significant legislation I've ever seen for that purpose right there. But there are a number of requirements that are very intense, sliding down the scale to those that are not really going to affect this city that much contained within that bill. It's a very long one. So that's what it's all about. And we can talk about it, more in depth whenever you would like, but I know Councilman Lehman, you had a particular interest in it. So I'm prepared at any point to have that conversation.
I think we should, Andrew, because I know this has been not just in Florida. I know this was being discussed when I lived in Alabama, even 6-7 years ago. And what they were struggling with is what you're saying. I mean, basically, if it's passed, they could put anything anywhere in your zone, anywhere. I mean, their biggest gripe up there were some very influential areas of town, let's just say. And they were going to be required to build low income housing and everything else. And there was nothing anybody could do. I mean, and that's where we're going. I mean, but if it's being mandated from above and this all got passed here in Florida, then I'd like to understand it. So we probably ought to put it on agenda. I don't know where we are on October on how full that is, or whether we just put this into November.
Pretty full.
That's what I was saying. I think it's pretty full.
Right.
And we published it Monday, but we could still amend it if you've.
No, let's
to add
don't.
something.
Let's make sure it's one of the first things we cover in November.
Okay.
And when would, I didn't.
And what is that, Andrew?
It's the Live Local Act.
Live Local Act.
Okay. All right. Any other department heads need to talk? Anybody else need to talk? Mandy, you're thinking.
Had something to say and I forgot.
Quickly, adjourn.
I don't, if I remember, I'll let you know.
Okay. And Andrew, if you would send that stuff out that you have on Form 6, that would be great, because I'm just trying to really understand what disclosures we're gonna need to make.
Already have. I just sent it
Got
to
it.
Mandy a little bit ago, so
Super.
I'm sure it'll be coming your way
Super.
shortly.
All right, anything else we need to discuss up here? Okay, we're good. All right, can I have a motion?
I move to close the meeting.
All right, have a second?
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting closed. Thank you, guys.
ma'am.
Appreciate
Another
it.
budget.